I wanted to talk about bad businessman's topic, right? We're going to talk about employees, work ethic, and the generational divide. I know a lot of people have
Mhm.
long talked about millennial work ethic and now Gen Z and how that differs. And the interesting thing is I'm technically neither. I'm technically Gen X. I'm
Mm,
I'm borderline Gen X millennial, but I'm technically land on the Gen X timeline, right? The
mm,
generation is comprised of 15 years, they say. And so I wrote it down here. 97 to 2012. So if your age is 10 to 25, you're Gen Z. If your age is 26 to 41, you're millennial. So you
mm,
Gen Y. So you fall under Gen Y, and
mhm.
you're the millennial generation. With revival, we've had, other than me, I mean, there were no other Gen Xers, right? We were all millennials
Yeah,
or Gen Z. We had two Gen Z employees.
yeah, that's true.
And it's very interesting. There definitely is a different work ethic between those two. And
Hmm.
I don't know if it just happens to be that the two Gen Z people were more aligned and it had nothing to do with their age, but I think it might
Right.
because I see huge similarities between all the millennials that worked here. Like
Hmm.
the way their work ethic, the way they think. And in fact, you could see it at large, right? Like we have the whole idea of quiet quitting, the great resignation. That was
Hmm.
all underwritten by the millennials, led
Yep.
by the millennials. They led the charge on all this. Um, and I'm not saying those are good or bad. I'm just saying that it is what it is. And what are your thoughts on do you think there's a huge difference you see between Gen Zs and millennials in the workplace, or have you had enough experience working with both?
Yeah, I personally think there is. I think I think every generation's a bit different because a lot of generations look to their parents and how they worked, and almost always I feel like they don't want to model the same work ethic as their parents, and so they
Mm.
become some sort of different variant basically, but like I can't speak for is it you said you're Gen X?
Yeah, there's another term
Millennial.
people like to use, exennials.
I mean my thing is I don't know, I can't comment on my thoughts for Gen X. But for millennial I felt like it was more so a passion. They were chasing passion, right? Because the assumption is their parents were all about just providing. And then in reality they were given this luxury of like chasing your passion is a luxury in my opinion, and I
Mhm.
think millennials had that luxury, and they're like, I don't care how much I make, I just want to do something that I'm passionate about. um, I think at least the Gen Zers that I've talked to, um, there's a split where it's like, okay, um, yes, I want to do what I'm passionate about and I don't care about the money. But I'm starting to see a lot more people that I talk to, all they care about is money. They don't care about passion. They don't care about what they love,
The Gen Z.
with Gen Z.
You
It's
know
it's
what?
just all about
I
what
agree.
pays the most.
That's interesting that you observe that because that's true. And there's actually a guy I've told you about.
Mhm.
The dude's always there working, and he's got a strong work ethic. And he's, I mean, of course, he owns his own business, but I
Yeah.
think I think Gen Zs are more likely to be entrepreneurial
See that.
than millennials. Yeah, because millennials have no, desire. I think because they also grew up during the Great Recession and experienced that in a big way too. And so, they're kind of more wary and distrustful. But no, yeah, no, I agree with you when you say yeah, that Gen Zs. I'm not saying they're money hungry, but for sure, like they're just willing to work for the money. We
Yeah.
had and take multiple jobs and do what it takes. So
Yeah. This is a huge generalization, but at least I feel like I said, it's kind of funny. It's almost like a cycle repeating, right? But it's like at least my parents were very much more so you've got to just do what you've got to do to provide, right? And then I felt like people in my generation, the whole thing was like, well, why are we going to do this whole career, chase after this entire career? It's what we spend most of our lives doing just to chase a dollar, right? Like,
Yeah.
then to spend that dollar on things we're passionate about instead of just doing what we're passionate about for most of our life. And we'll probably, who knows if we'll make less money, it doesn't matter, but we'll spend our lives doing things we love, right?
Yeah.
And then these Gen Zers are almost like reciprocate, like basically it's like recycled. It's like our parents again. It's like just do whatever makes the most money, you know? And it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of funny, but
Well,
I think they're more like in a way practical going, just follow a dollar and then whatever makes you the most money, you can go have fun in your spare time, you know?
yeah.
And it's like almost like that mentality. So it's just interesting. But because I thought just with social media and people having platforms and ease of like starting channels and all those things or whatever, that they would like push that passion thing even more so.
Yeah.
But they don't. They're just like, this is gonna make me money. I'm gonna do this, you know? And I'm like, okay, it's interesting.
It seems like some of the millennials still don't mind socializing with people from work, which I find odd, but the Gen Zs would rather separate work life, even though that's contrary to, what you read about or hear about, but that's what I've seen at least. And so, uh, so you're saying there's a shift in just kind of the worldview, right? But
Hmm.
how does that play into work ethic? Can we say this is a huge generalization? Obviously, like you're going to find exceptions within,
Yeah.
but would you, if you wanted to make a sweeping generalization of each, generation, would you say Gen Zs are harder working than millennials?
Dude, you know what's funny? That's a super controversial statement. I think it could be because um here's my thought. Like if you're a millennial leaving your job, it's I personally feel once again these are all sweeping generalizations like you said, but I feel like the reasoning is going to be because you're you found something that's more aligned with your passions, right? Um you're not leaving a job paying you $180,000 a year, right? For a job that pays you $200,000 a year that you're not passionate about, right? You're gonna take a $20,000, like you're gonna keep your job, not make more money because you love where you're at, rather than taking a pay raise, right? Um, Gen Z is like, I feel like they're gonna be like, I'm making 180, that's 200, duh, of course I'm gonna take it, right? And I feel like they're I don't know about the work ethic. Here's my thing. The work ethic, I think they're more willing to work at things that they don't care about, right? But they're also a bit more volatile. Like, I feel like they are more willing to quit for something that pays more too, though. You know what I mean? Like, so maybe that's not work ethic, but it's just it's something that when you're hiring somebody, like, God forbid they get a better job offer. Like, I feel like the loyalty is next to zero with that, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I feel like they'll come in and just get the job done, you know?
yeah.
I do feel like that more so than millennials will.
Well, one thing I observed, and I don't have a huge sample size because, we had like 12 employees, but um, it's the millennial group that would take more time off, also be sick or take absence a lot more often. In fact, we have an employee now that they literally like can't make it to work, every day.
Mm,
They'll be in like 3 times a week. Well, this past week, they've been here every day, but there's always some excuse, right?
right.
And then when we had the Gen Zs, they never took days off. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
What what about do you think one group is more resilient than the other? And obviously
Hmm.
we probably can't really speak into that because we haven't really experienced. Well, no, we've experienced hardship. I guess Gen Zs are now experiencing their first recession right now. It's,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're
I think
finding it
I,
hard.
I think also like Gen X and before didn't care about things like mental health. Their resilience was that they just pushed through everything, right? And like they stuffed stuff down in their life and they pushed through and they got stuff done, right? With their families, with themselves, with all those things. And I feel like that was their version of resilient. Millennials, um, I don't know what their version like, and I'm a millennial. I don't know what their version of resilient would be. Um, uh, Once again, I mean, maybe like the resilience of being able to pursue what you love, and you're fighting against basically people's opinions. You're fighting against a lot that goes into what chasing your passions would be. But I feel like Gen Z, I mean, you went through COVID, right? You've grown up in this digital age where like people are very cruel on the internet. And I feel like a lot of these kids, like, they don't care when they post things like what people say in the comments,
Yeah.
right? Where I feel like older age people do, it's like they get stuck and hung up on comments and stuff. And Gen Z is more like just bold and just I grew up on the internet and the internet's like a really cruel place, right? And they don't care. And they've been through this pandemic. They've been through um, they're more open about mental health and things like that, which to me, like in the vulnerability, there's a lot of strength there. So I feel like Gen Z, as much as people want to rip them, there's a lot more to them than people would like to admit, you know?
That's interesting because I was talking to my wife last night about how different raising our girl right now is than
Mm,
when I was a kid. So because everyone's basically helicopter parenting, right? Because you keep track of where your kid is at all times now because you have smartphones. When I was a kid, we didn't have cell phones, right? And so if I left the house, I'd just say, "Hey, mom, I'm going to my friend's house. Ride my bike over there, go there," and I'd be gone. She'd just say, like, "Get home before dark," right? So I'd be
right.
gone for hours, and she wouldn't know for sure where I was, right? But
Right.
I mean, she might have a phone number of one of my friends, but sometimes I'd be places she had no idea where I was, dude. I was getting into trouble. Actually, I was listening to Bill Burr and Conan O'Brien, and Conan O'Brien was making the comment that, oh yeah, like raising my daughter, he was an older father, but he's like,
Right. Right.
dude, the amount of care one kid gets is way more because he's like, when I was a kid, if you asked, oh, where's Conan, like the parents would be like, I have no idea, you know.
Right.
And Bill Burr
Like
was
I
like,
haven't
yeah,
seen him in four
we just
days.
we just left the house, and went out and played with our friends, and until we ran into some older kids who beat the crap out of us, right? That's so true because that's how
Right.
you might not have experienced that, but when I was a kid, I'd go out in the neighborhood, and yeah, if you'd hang out with your friends, but
Right.
you're little, if you ran into older kids, they usually like heckled you or beat the heck crap out of you.
That's funny.
And that helps build resilience, like in terms
Yeah.
of like when you deal with people. Now, we weren't equipped to deal with what happens online because today most people are on this thing all day, right? Their
Right.
smartphone.
Right.
And I think I read a statistic that most people are spending 40% plus of their day on it.
That
That's
doesn't shock me
about
at all.
half your time. Like
Yeah.
nothing else took sucked that much of your time in my entire lifetime before the invention of the smartphone. Like nobody watched TV for 40% of the day. Nobody
Right.
even worked or slept or did any of that for 40% of the day.
Yeah.
No other. So now you have a captive audience, like if you can reach them. That's why it's so powerful to advertise on here. And
Yeah.
so, you know, the people in my age group, I don't, I can only speak for myself, but I'm not on it as much as my wife. My wife's like, you know, she'd be like right in the middle of like millennial, right?
Mhm.
And she's on it a lot more than I am. I don't know. How about you? Your
The usage on the phone.
yeah. If you
Tons.
could look up the numbers actually, if you go to your
Yeah, mine's tons. Mine's always high. I had to start recently, like a couple weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago or so, deleting social media that I wasn't using except for anything but entertainment.
Mhm.
Um, because my usage kept going up. And I think, like, I mean, obviously this is how they plan it all. I mean, like, your friendships, instead of going over, is now Facebook, right? And instead of going over to talk to people, it's Facebook, and you can see everything on your own time, and it kind of like appeases our nosiness and all those things that we want in our relationships. And I mean, Instagram is just a similar thing, but I feel like it's highlights, it's interesting stuff. It's not someone posting like COVID conspiracy
Yeah.
theories like what they do on Facebook, right? And then Twitter is just it's the gossip of the internet, right? Like, you just get to hear everybody talking crap, and YouTube is entertainment, and Google is search and information, right? It's every aspect of, like, I mean, this is an obvious statement, but it's every aspect of our normal IRL lives put online. So, like you said, like, kids used to go outside, but now VR headsets and social media is the new outside, like,
Yeah.
so that's where they're getting beat up on the internet. It's when playing video games and like older kids are roasting them in the chat, or like, you know, just talking crap and all that stuff. It's like the new version of it, right? So, um, yeah, I think resilience, dude, it's so interesting, but because I was kind of in like a transition period in my life. Like, I
Mhm.
remember when the internet didn't have crap, basically. Like, like, we had websites, of course, but like, there weren't, it didn't feel like nearly as many when I was a kid, right? And then the capabilities of the internet are now, it's in maturation, right? Like, beginning of when I was a kid, it felt like you could see that it was in infancy, basically. Um, and so, yeah, they're raised in a digital world. Like, I got to be raised with it, sure, but like, it was not something to where I needed it all the time, or that it was to its best um, form of itself. So I didn't
Wait,
really.
how old were you when you got your first smartphone or first phone?
My first phone was a smartphone, and I was in eighth grade, going into ninth grade. So
Holy,
it was the I actually got the iPhone, the first iPhone.
it's
So I was going into high school. Um,
yeah. I was using payphones in high school and
yeah,
trying to get free calls. I had a pager all through college.
really.
You know what pagers are, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
that's
It's
funny.
interesting
Yeah,
because kids nowadays, I'm seeing them like. I mean, I saw this years ago. I saw this when I was in high school, graduating. So it was only 4 years between when I got a phone to when I was graduating high school. I was tutoring kids who were in fifth and sixth grade at local schools, and they'd pull out their cell phones. And I'm like, "How old are you?" And they're like, "Oh, whatever age they were. They're in sixth grade, fifth grade, and they've got a cell phone, like." And I'm like, dude, how the hell do you have this already? Like, who could be in your contact list? You know what I mean?
well,
What can you be
now a lot
doing?
of
But
parents want, and I've talked about this with my wife, want their kids to at least have a phone,
yeah,
with emergency contacts, and that's it.
yeah,
And you can deactivate the apps or whatever if you want.
yeah, yeah.
It just
My niece is 2 years old, just turned 2 years old, and she can work the iPad. And I hear parents say this all the time. Oh, she can work the iPad better than me. But I'm like, I'm watching her, and I'm like, no, she actually can work this thing and somehow figure out, like, she can't put her ABC blocks in the correct holes,
yeah.
here, but she's on an iPad and she can go on YouTube and go find videos that she wants and watch episodes of TV that so
Well,
it's
the
wild.
skills you talked about, building the building blocks and all that, those are actually more fundamental and important because
Right.
the UI is designed to be as frictionless and easy as possible.
Right.
So it's supposed to be intuitive. Like that's how, UX and UI designers design it, right?
Yeah.
And that the goal is it's so easy that a 2-year-old could do it,
Yeah.
right? So the
It's like
2-year-old is
obviously
just
them.
using intuition.
Yeah.
Now, she needs to learn those basic skills. And I know a lot of parents, we can make the mistake of, oh, they can open this app and do this. And well, yeah, that's native to their instinct. We need to spend more time on offline things,
Yeah.
and I don't know, I don't know what the implications are. I don't know what the next generation is going to end up being, but I think we're going to have fewer artisans, fewer people who build things. um, it's going to be harder to find that talent if we don't really stress that.